I was personally addicted to alcohol, but mine was through a spiritual experience with the Creator. It's got to be the same way too for our young people. It's got to be based on the traditional teachings of our forefathers, that tobacco is sacred. It's not to be abused. We did not abuse it. It's the settler society that abused it, turned it into a money-making adventure. And we never thought that would be done. But here we are talking about the issue that had no hand in it.
When our children and our grandchildren, and we see the young people doing this, doing that, doing drugs, doing whatever, our initial reaction is anger. And then we're going to blame. Well, so-and-so brought the drug, so-and-so did this. Instead of taking ownership and say, I didn't teach my child, I didn't teach my grandchild about the sacred use of tobacco. So when we don't teach, we don't learn. And it really opened my eyes to my students.
We were taught that our bodies are sacred and that we should treat it as such. And whenever everything in the Western society evolves around economics and everything, this building, I bet you even this feather had some monetary value somewhere along the line. And I think that was where the problems all started when the first Europeans came into this part of the world. And I always tell young people not to worry. It's going to stop. So we're very strong people. We're very resilient people. There's a quote I always like to use of this woman down in the Sioux. I overheard say one time, she said, we are descendants of our strongest ancestors. In other words, all of us sitting here, in our DNA and in our blood, there's a reason we're still here, because we're descendants of those strongest people that walked away from all of the hardships that our people have endured, all Indian nations across North America. We're still here because we're a part of those bloodlines. And when you tell our young people that, it puts a different perspective on the way they think.
I'm optimistic that we can, help our young people evolve and think differently about tobacco, right? Make it trendy or fashionable in the same way that it was with the false eyelashes, the ribbon skirts, the Pendleton coats, or whatever it is that people are going now. Because, young people, they're proud of who they are. A lot of them, what I see, they talk about decolonizing, right? And, I've only learned that word, a few years ago, even though I'm a writer. I've only learned that word a few years ago, even though I understood the concept and I knew what it meant. I didn't, that's what it's called. It's called decolonizing, right? So I really think that, when the young people here think about how can we use the information that was shared, the knowledge that was transmitted, and how can we make it like the false eyelashes, make it what they want to do this, right? So it's just something to think about, right?
I didn't really get into smoking or drinking because I like sports. I like my youngs. I like running, and I just want to take care of my body.
And she was educated on what smoking and vaping and these other things that many of our people are into can do to the detriment of her sports. And I'm very proud to say that she chose to, like she said, take care of her body. And because of her disposition, she had many Muslims, lots of uncles encouraging her. Hey, that's right, you don't need to smoke. It will take your lungs away. You won't be able to run far. You won't be able to run fast. It's one of the things that I'm very proud of my daughter. She can run like the wind.
A lot of me and my friends tried it all, Some of them got stuck in that field. I was lucky enough to have a support system around that I didn't get lured off into that. So I'm trying to help with the youth back home and soak up everything I can here to take back to them.
As a young child, just being in the presence of those ceremonies with your families, you received your land-based training. That training was taught to you by just being part of that process. The pipe ceremonies, the sacred ceremonies, the social ceremonies. You were always part of that family, that community. And that's how we learned.
I just think the peer pressure one is a big point, like who they hang out with and like what impacts their friends should start it. I have been approached to vape by our younger generation, and being the role model that I am and working in our rec center back home, I do say no to them because that's not being a role model to them as they are younger than I am.
What we see in our community is what we learn, and I really give a lot of, encouragement to the young people, like this young guy here who's saying that, he's fortunate enough that he had the support system and that he didn't have to follow the rest of the group, because peer pressure is very powerful. That peer pressure is very powerful, and we need that really strong support, not to get involved with what everybody else is doing here, to be a part of. So, I encourage you to keep going, and to utilizing your support systems, because that's very important to continue our journey.
What are your children going to live on? That's what worries us too. Our children, our habitat. When we pray about the future, let's mean it.